Hey, Crawl Spacers, welcome to our September Spider History with JR, and JR is right there. What's going on, JR?
Yeah, well, I'm debating on whether or not to let Hornacek out of the room. We'll see. I might maybe when when the story's over and I've expunged all
Well,
the
it's
nerve.
been 30 days, you
Yeah, I
know?
know. But I carry a grudge like no
You
other
do.
person carries a grudge. So
So we are continuing our look back at what the fans of this show have demanded, that we look at the Child Within. We're on part 4 of really 7 on this one. A web slinger versus Green Goblin. The prize, Spider-Man sanity.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Now this is again, fortunately for you Goblin fans out there, but we have more of that. But unfortunately, we go down another deep psychological rabbit hole, which personally I think is dishonest. I don't think it's an honest story point, and I don't think it's true to Peter Parker's character. But obviously, it was something very important to the writer. And I think actually it reveals its Batman origins, because it was originally a Batman story. Yeah. But anyway, this is, rightly or wrongly, this is one of the most significant Harry Osborn stories, because this is where Harry goes off the rails for good. Leading to his death, which lasts a few years until Brand New Day, but that's another thing, though. Yeah. So anyway,
all 3 previous parts have started with video footage from years ago.
Yep.
And we do it again.
Yep. Vermin is on tape. These are the observation tapes that and usually Dr. Kafka is either talking to him, or, excuse me, she's there with him. All right. Now here, but unfortunately, and as you know, boys and girls, last month in part 1, we learned that Vermin violently broke out of Ravencroft and slaughtered probably at least a dozen people, if not more. And this is what tips him off finally. He's in the throes, obviously, of remembering the bad thing. And how his mommy failed him and let him down by not coming to his rescue when Daddy was doing the bad thing. So he calls for Dr. Kafka, but Dr. Kafka is not there. And the voice says that she's not there, that she's getting some rest. And that makes Venom freak completely out. And he breaks out and then kills all those people. All right. So
real quick, Hornacek says, is this the first time Peter's parents have any significant mention since the 1968 annual number 5?
Good question, Hornacek. You're getting closer. You're getting closer to the door, Yeah. But that is a good. I'm trying.
It's always been Uncle Ben.
Yeah. I mean, his parents are always kind of mentioned offhandedly, and I'm trying to remember when the. Okay, it was post Clone Saga, because I was remembering when they did the flashback issues, and they, where they met Wolverine, because Wolverine then knew his parents. That was after the Clone Saga, so that was after this. Hornacek, you may be right.
I think it is.
I think you're probably right. So
we were
close. You might get out of the room by the end of the show.
We're talking about how I love Sal Buscema's art, but even I can't defend this next panel. And when I read it was just odd, because Vermin's mom is looking through the photo album, and the picture, it looks like she has 4 eyes here. Like because I reread this arc in anticipation of tonight, and I'm like, that looks weird, the way the gray eyebrows are hitting. It looks like there's 4 eyes on Mom there.
It does. It does. You think the eyebrows would either be gray or even,
Yeah. Because maybe it's the color. Maybe it's the color. It's more than Sal, actually.
It could be. It could be. Because usually even people with gray hair, sometimes their eyebrows are still dark.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, so we have, quote unquote, we have Mommy looking at a picture of Edward. Then the next page we have Vermin's mommy figure, Dr. Kafka, looking at Vermin.
Yeah.
All right. And then the next page where we kick off the story is Peter is unconscious. Harry is taking him to an abandoned building, and Peter starts to revive, and Harry immediately begins
beating the hell
out of him. Basically, because Harry does not want to face Harry does not want to face the fact that Norman Osborn was not a good man. Harry wants to believe that his dad loved him, took care of him, sheltered him, nurtured him, everything like that. But of course, that was not Norman Osborn. Norman Osborn was incapable of those things.
Yeah.
And Harry can't deal with that. Not sure I understand. Well, I should save this to the end. So he's deluded about being a good father, and he resents Peter for continually being. Peter is a constant reminder now of what a bad man Norman Osborn was, because obviously, if Peter Parker, his best friend, is fighting Norman, so something's got to be, he can't reconcile the disparity. He can't reconcile what he wants Norman Osborn to be with what Norman Osborn really was. So, he babbles about how Liz and Normie, if they knew how scared and weak he was, that they would leave him. So he decides that he's really going to mess with Peter's mind, and he opens up a gassy pumpkin bomb. All right. And we're going to start, here it's fun. This is interesting because just another thing occurred to me. So he's making Spider-Man hallucinate again. And when Spider-Man, quote unquote, comes to, which he really does, and he's in the hallucination, he's surrounded by giant tombstones. Okay. And then the big one he sees is here lies Kraven the Hunter, killed by Spider-Man. And then a zombified Kraven with half his head blown off shows up. Excuse me. And he blames Spider-Man for not stopping him from killing himself. And then Harry comes back. Harry, takes off, Kraven peels off his face, and it turns out to be Harry the Goblin. And Harry says something interesting. He says, "You and Death are old friends, aren't you? More than friends, you're a team. You feed him victims, and in return, you get now." And he goes, but this is actually very similar to some of the dialogue going on between Kindred and Spider-Man.
Okay.
Talking about, remember how Kindred is always talking about Spider-Man's sins. I mean, and Harry is bringing up the fact that death, is always surrounding Peter. I mean, it's somewhat kind of analogous. And this is why I thought it was kind of fortuitous that we picked this story, because as the Kindred story is unfolding, it's kind of like some of the same overtones. But this reminds me of, again, which shows either how stupid lawyers are, or Marvel is, or how they don't think. For example, remember when the little boy who died wanted to have a picture, or they wanted a Spider-Man engraved on his tombstone or something because he's a big Spider-Man fan.
Yeah, the news story.
So of course Marvel sent one of these stupid letters that basically
cease and desist.
Yeah, but it wasn't. Again, IPs have to be vigorously protected, blah, blah, blah. We kind of ran into the same thing with the Superman thing. It's like, it's not that they are protecting their IPs. It's that the reasons they give and the language they use are stupid and they're insulting. They can't, it's like they can't protect their IP without insulting somebody and belittling them. But the letter that came with this cease and desist was about how Spider-Man, it was something like represents life. He's positive, he's affirming a representation of life. And it's like, no, are you kidding? Death has always hung around this character.
Yeah.
Death is what created.
Yeah.
Death is what created this character. Death is what haunts this character constantly. Death is a constant companion of Spider-Man. So why are you writing this bullshit letter about, he's such a positive affirmation of life, so we can't possibly put his image on a tombstone? Yeah.
Hornacek has a question about your favorite Goblin story, or one of them. Is that the same gas pumpkin bomb from Spider-Man #2, the magazine, not the book?
Yeah. There's always been hallucinogenic pumpkin bombs. Yeah, Norman is. Yeah, that's been a key part of the Goblin arsenal, is hallucinogenic pumpkin bombs.
Yeah. And we have Mary. She's late, but she said that she's happy to hear the King of Spider History talk The Child Within.
Oh, King of Spider History. Oh,
you are the king.
I'm
Where's your crown?
I'm flattered. I'm flattered. I was about to say, I was going to try to make a crown joke or whatever, but
just go to Burger King. You'll get one.
Well, I was going to compare the hair on my head to Brad's lack of hair, but I couldn't quite make it out. So anyway, but I guess I shouldn't make too much fun because it's getting, it's like that's why my hair's growing long now. I'm compensating for the fact it's getting thinner on top. Anyway, so
meanwhile, Spider-Man's in the cemetery.
you notice it's like when I'm always going on these rant always just like tries to bring me back or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, so Spider-Man then sees a ghost of dead people, like Haley Joe Osment or whatever. And one is Nathan Lubinsky. Like, who cares? Nathan Lubinsky's dead. I hate it. But what's so ironic now is another one is Ned Leeds, and of course.
He's better.
He got better, I guess.
Yeah. Our other female viewer, Sarah, says, next episode, JR better be in a crown with a Whopper, Sarah. He needs the Whopper in one hand and the Burger King crown on the top is what I'm saying. Yeah. Peter Palmer, consider Harry's drug use. Interesting to see him use a hallucinogenic pumpkin bomb.
True.
Gary in the Frozen says, JR never stopped doing spider history.
I don't know. I mean, considering the other retirement we've had,
I mean, George maybe has retired. Yeah, that's Nathan Lubinsky ghost walk from Friday Night Fights. Yes,
that's cruel. That's cruel, but I like it. A little closer to the door there, Hornacek.
All right, who else?
Because I hated Nathan Lubinsky. I really did.
Let's go to another grave where the dude's not dead.
yeah, Norman Osborn. Ghost of Nathan Lubinsky, Ned Leeds, Norman Osborn. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, two of these three people are now no longer dead. So anyway, so the next page is again the observation tapes of Vermin breaking out and killing people because he wants somebody to make him forget the bad thing. Okay, we get it. This is the fourth issue in a row we've heard about the bad thing referenced. Let's move on with the story.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But anyways, you can see this.
Almost. Do you think it's pre-writing to the trade? And this is 91 when this came out.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay.
I again, I don't know what the motivation was for this to be a 6-part story when I genuinely believe it should have been half that amount, I don't think it was right for the trade. They may have told him to extend it 6 months or whatever, or to make it like, I think as one of our, as earlier suggested, make it another Craven's Last Hunt story.
You take the Vermin out of it, it's probably 3 issues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyways, you can see, it's Vermin is vicious. He slaughters people viciously, So then we go back, to the hallucination. Peter is surrounded by giant graves of the Stacys and Uncle Ben. Peter is talking to Ben about the guilt that he feels. And Ben's voice, is telling him, oh, that's not what this is all about. It's not about me. It goes further than that. And then zombies.
Look at Spider-Man turn into a little baby. He's turned into a little baby. He's smaller.
Yep.
Like baby Spider-Man.
This is because it's supposed to signify, and these are clearly his parents coming back from, coming back from the dead, but leaving him actually. But anyway, zombie parents. I guess are zombie parents better than robot parents?
One takes batteries, one takes brains.
Ooh, that was relatively quick, and it wasn't
too bad.
I just it wasn't, and it wasn't too bad either. It wasn't as painful. It wasn't as painful as some of the other ones Woody rejoinders you come up with.
I think you like the alliteration of the bees, the brains.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. I think the alliteration got me. Anyway, so Peter now, of course, is being faced with this truth, of course. So that's what I was thinking, Horace. Like maybe they said, we want another Craven's Last Hunt. So anyway, being forced to confront this truth, flips Peter out, and even though he's still within the hallucination, he's breaking out. But it's like, let them, they can't be dead. They can't be dead. And so he's flipping out, which actually is kind of freaking Harry out.
You've lost it when the crazy man gets a little freaked out.
When the crazy man is
he's almost pulling a Shatner there with Khan. No.
Okay, that was stretching. That was stretching. You
Oh.
stretched on that one.
Well, I'm a machine gun of humor. Some of them get them, some of them don't. I got you on
I
one.
don't know. I think your bolt is pretty rusty and slow to respond there. And
What do you think my bolt about?
Anyway,
right,
so
going.
Peter is screaming, "Don't let them be dead!"
Yeah.
And he's swinging away, and he's saying, "Mommy, Daddy," and they must. And then as you read all these little words, they must not love me. It's my fault they went away. It must be my fault.
Yeah.
Oh,
I like the little yellow dialogue boxes are upside down and flying all over the place. It's kind of fun.
I didn't like it.
Okay.
But anyway, go to the next page, because this is where we're getting to another crux of this story, is that Peter blames himself for his parents' deaths. Okay. Yeah. All right. So anyway, next page, we go back to Vermin's house, and Vermin's dad is sitting there reminiscing with a picture of little Vermin, little Edward sitting on his lap. But Vermin just ain't there in the picture. He's there in person now.
I'm back, Daddy.
I'm back, Daddy, and I'm going to kill you. Dr. Kafka is sleeping on the couch in her office. She hears the window crash, and there's someone crawls through and says, "Doctor, help me!" Just almost like the Fly. Help me! Help me!
Continued next issue.
Oh man!
Wait, there's more.
yeah. Oh, 178, 170, 180. Oh, gotta take a swig of Mountain Dew here, boys and girls.
We got two more after that. Was it go to 83? 183 or 84?
3 parts to 184.
Okay, so we got two more. All right, so let's take a look at the cover of this. Vermin, the Goblin, Spider in the middle.
And again, once again, the Goblin gets relegated to a bit player in this on the cover. All right. More observation tapes.
Hey, let's look at the tape.
Let's go like George Michael Sports Machine. Let's go back to the videotape.
Let's go back to the tape. Yeah.
All right, the George Michael Sports Machine. Anybody remember that one?
I barely remember that. Wow.
Yeah.
And not George Michael from Wham either.
No, not Wham George Michael. This was a sportscaster out of DC with a syndicated show. More observation tapes, and now we basically we learn Venom's father. I did it again.
Well, take a shot. Venom, Vermin, not Venom.
Vermin. Just for that Hornacek, you lose a step or two from the door.
Here we go. This is a gross panel. Dragging Mom to the bed.
Yeah, basically. In the panel before, though, we find out he was a judge. They call him the judge, and Vermin is saying, well, if he was my father, he wouldn't do the bad thing, touching him, making him touch him, makes Vermin feel sick and sorry, so he pushes it down real deep. Ugh. Edward's gone. I'm Vermin. So essentially, we see now that Vermin is not just something that Baron Zemo turned Edward Whelan into. We find out that Vermin is a self-defense mechanism to help him come to grips with the sexual abuse he suffered as a child.
Refresh me. He doesn't.
What is it doing in this story?
He doesn't transform like Hulk, does he? He doesn't go back to Edward. He's stuck in that persona, I think.
Actually,
or does he?
Yes and no, because and we'll see actually in the final part, the epilogue part.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that Kafka has said throughout this story, and this was something Reed Richards speculated, and actually this has been done with John Jameson as well, is that some of these physical transformations are just not physical transformations; they're physiological. So it isn't just Zemo's experiments that have turned Edward into Vermin. Also, Vermin's psychological pain has created Vermin. So, there's a little bit of that going on too. So, anyway, so he's drags Mom in. He's going to kill Dad.
But the little boy.
And the little boy, there's the little boy
Please.
telling him not to hurt him. And then
Dude's lost it.
we have Naked Peter.
Peter has lost his clothing. Yes.
Naked Peter. All right.
Naked Peter.
All right. And again, the whole picture. Mommy, Daddy, I'll do anything. Did I make you go away? No, because they had a job. They went to work. Gee whiz. Is it because
Where is Peter? He's in a giant cavern. Where is he?
Is it because you didn't love me? No, because I had a job.
Yeah.
And then he's crawling out of the tunnel. I mean, in this, like, okay, we get a page of Naked Peter, okay, in the dark.
I remember reading this back in the day. I'm like, Peter's naked. That's just.
Then we have Naked Peter crawling out of the tunnel, and Kafka is telling Naked Peter, the little boy is afraid, but the man isn't. Don't let the little boy control you. Honor him, nurture him, love him, but don't let him rule your life. I have to admit, I have never been really analyzed by psychiatrists, but is this the way they talk? Is this the way they reach people? I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Brent says that's a giant Freudian tunnel.
So Peter crawls. He crawls out of it. I don't want to hide anymore. I'm being tired of being hurt by my past. I can't let myself be controlled anymore. I can't be chained by my childhood. I'm a man. I'm a man.
Are you a Muppet? I'm a man.
Wow.
Or I'm a Muppet.
Oh.
Okay,
wow.
Go ahead.
Is
the tunnel Peter's crawling out of? It's supposed to be like the panels when Peter was crawling out of the grave in Craven's Last Hunt. Possibly.
I don't know. I think this is just kind of the tunnel is just the him crawling up out of the darkness. I mean, because the first page we had Naked Peter in the darkness. Okay. Mm-hmm. So then second page is Naked Peter slowly coming out of the darkness through this tunnel, theoretically through the tunnel up to the light. So
yeah. Gary, I think DeMatteis probably did say, "Hey Sal, draw me some Naked Peter." Yeah. So then Spider-Man starts crawling again.
Wait. Does anybody want to hear that again?
No, I don't want to say it again because it sounds weird.
All right. So anyway, so Spider-Man staggers around,
hitting his head.
And Dr. Kafka says you face the monster, Spider-Man, and you're going to be all right.
Okay.
Now speaking of monsters, the little boy is telling Vermin he can't kill his father, but the Vermin is screaming to tell him about the bad thing. Yeah. And of course, the judge says the obvious, nobody's there. And Vermin's mom is, telling him not to kill his father. But then finally, mommy says she's sorry and she's not going to let anybody hurt him. Nobody's going to hurt him. And of course, the cops are waiting outside, of course, because we got to make this point too, that, Vermin's going to be okay. But God damn, just those cops showed up.
Then let's go back to the tape.
Let's go back and watch more.
Good
page of Vermin explaining what happened when Zemo began experimenting on him. Okay, this is so then, Zemo starts experimenting on him, but then what this does is this triggers memories of the bad thing and how the bad thing made him feel like a criminal. And Zemo is bringing out those feelings of self-loathing and that Edward feels like he's worse than a criminal, that he's Vermin. Yeah. Okay. Now, so
let's check in on Harry.
Back to Spider-Man and the Goblin is just kind of lurking out there, and Spider-Man is saying, boy, I just never realized how much I blamed myself for my parents' deaths. And Dr. Kafka is saying, oh, that's a typical how a child deals with trauma and everything like that. It helps you regain your power and sense of control or whatever. And I'm thinking, wait. Does DeMatteis even know or care that they were S.H.I.E.L.D. agents killed by the Finisher, who, by the way, has showed up recently in the pages of Spider-Man, killed by the Finisher on orders of the fake Red Skull? Or is he just conveniently ignoring it to shoehorn his message and this guilt trip into the narrative? Okay, because Peter's parents died when he was little. as he says in the story, and as he's always said, he remembers very little about them. He remembers almost nothing about them. He considers Ben and May to be his parents. Really, he always has.
But I wonder if a kid blames themselves. Well, and Peter is very guilt-ridden anyway. But I wonder if he just adds that to the long list of stuff he feels guilty for.
But it's okay. And here I guess I have to regress. Mm-hmm. I have been very fortunate in my life. Okay, I have been. I had both parents. Mm-hmm. Both parents raised me. My father, my mother is still alive. I lost my father, but I was 38 years old at the time, and we'd had our differences over the years, and we had all that was under the water. So we had so I was lucky. I was very lucky, and I've never had feelings of abandonment.
That's what Peter has.
Yeah, well, but see, here's the thing. It's like people who, and again, so this is it. I don't know how somebody in this situation would feel. I know, for example, and I understand that people who feel adopted definitely have feelings of abandonment because essentially, I mean, even though it's balanced by the fact that somebody really wanted them, it's the fact that their parents didn't for whatever reason. Okay. Yeah. This is not that.
You don't think Peter feels that, right?
He shouldn't. I mean, maybe somebody can tell me that this happens to people, but it's like, again, if he were 6 or 7, I mean, in a way, it almost makes more sense in the Amazing Spider-Man movies because obviously he's a little boy then with memories of his parents. Right. Here, he really doesn't have any. And I mean, if you go back to Spectacular or Amazing Annual number 5, he's just a toddler. I mean, he waddles instead of walks. He wouldn't remember his parents. So the idea that he could, I don't know if they did that. Maybe they did. Maybe it gave him the idea, but I just have a hard time reconciling that this is truly how somebody would feel. I mean, yes, he does take a lot of guilt on himself, but this is almost beyond ridiculous. Yeah. It happens in comics. I just, again, maybe, again, he was almost a baby at the time. And like I said, they went to work. They took a job. They could have gotten killed on the highway. I don't see how I don't see how he's making this connection. I really, really don't. So anyway, the nurse comes running in and tells Kafka that Vermin is in Scarsdale. Spider-Man is out the window on his way, and he's talking about how free he feels of all these repressed feelings that he's had. All right, Vermin sees the cops, demands to know why Mommy didn't protect him. Well, the old man finally got his gun out of the nightstand, but Vermin has rats who attack him. Vermin grabs a gun and is about to shoot Dad, but he can't bring himself to do it. Spider-Man shows up. He and Vermin spill out of the house, swing back on the roof to begin fighting. Then Vermin is zapped by the Goblin, who tells him he's mine. Exactly.
Yeah.
Harry says, now Spider-Man dies. All right.
That one wrapped that issue up. We got 2 more.
Well, 2 more, but this is like the last part of the main story. Spectacular Spider-Man.
Yep.
But we don't. Now here's a great cover. All right.
Beautiful.
Story starts out this time with a different kind of film, different kind of tape.
This
is Vermin Home Movies. All right.
Because you demanded it. Yeah.
Yeah. Vermin Home Movies. All right. So then we get a page of just it raining and people looking at, I don't know what they're looking at, if they're looking at the rain or if they're looking at the guy in Goblin. Or they're looking at the guy in the green and purple and the little purple booties. All right. Well, right. Vermin falls off the roof and looks like the cops are going to, ventilate him. And Harry is doing his supervillain talking and Peter just, I can't, nope, shut up, Harry, and knocks him into New Jersey, which is what, at this point in time, is what Spider-Man should be doing to Harry. I mean, Harry has no superpowers at this time. All right. Harry should not be.
Does he not have the Goblin formula?
No, I don't think he does. He does. I don't think he gets it until.
When does that happen?
I think it happens just before issue 189. Before because Harry comes back twice more. He comes back for that weird.
Because we're building up the Spec 200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He comes back for the weird dinner party. All right. And I think he got his superpowers just before then. He immersed himself in
Okay.
Goblin formula so he doesn't have superpowers right now. So, when Peter knocks him into New Jersey, he ought to stay there, but that's not what happens. So he swoops down to save Vermin, webs him up. Dr. Kafka comes to him. Mommy comes to him, says, Daddy can't hurt you now because daddies are bad people. This is what I always hate these stories because it's like, not every father does this, but whenever I see these stories, I think that's the narrative that's being sent, is that fathers are perverts. I remember, would JR have liked the story more if Vermin wasn't in it? Yes, he would have.
I would too.
Yes, he would have. But for various reasons, I don't like the character, and it prolonged the story, and it just isn't necessary. Yeah. It's like, I remember once I was watching Law and Order with my daughter, because my daughter started out watching America's Most Wanted and Law and Order with me when she was little,
and then she went into law enforcement.
And then when she went into criminal justice. But I remember it was like there's this episode of Law and Order where this doctor is explaining how child abuse works, and basically it's like, and then your dad then notices how attractive you are and says how attractive you are and likes the smell of your hair. And I went in and I said, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. It's like, so anyway, so that's why I hate these stories. It's like, it's part of it seems like it's part of the larger narrative that dads are bad and men are creeps. All right. And that kids don't need dads because they're bad. All right. Anyway, so Vermin now is going to go off to the loony bin in the padded cell where he can be hugged and kissed and given sugar cookies. So the goblin swoops in to take Spider-Man. And so they're going to have another fight, but this time Peter is going to take control. Going to take control, and he tears off their mask and says, "This is about two men named Peter Parker and Harry Osborn," just like he did to Norman in Peter Parker number 75. So again, Glenn Greenberg, I don't know what you're talking about, but it's always been personal with Peter and the Osborns. And it became personal between Peter and Norman when Norman found out who he was. And Norman found out that, he was living with his son. It's like, it's since then, it's always been personal, but with them and with the Osborns and Peter. Yeah. All right. So Harry now is really freaking out, throwing pumpkin bombs right and left, telling Peter that ever since he met him, he knew he was evil, that he was the one who killed Gwen, and he framed Norman for killing Gwen, and then he killed Norman. And then Peter says, all right, Harry, okay, what is it you really want? And Harry says, I want your life. Peter says, and which is actually, pretty, take it, and
I'll put that up. This is pretty good. Norman starts whispering to Harry.
Yeah.
But this is cool. He's taunting him, but he got hit pretty hard. Look at that.
Yeah.
Peter got hit with a big pumpkin bomb. Yeah.
And, so basically he's saying, just do it. I can't stop you. Just do it.
Yeah.
And so Norman is, goading him on. It's like, yeah. This is your chance. This is your chance, boy. Oh boy, this is the moment I've been waiting for. And then
it's a game of goblin spider chicken.
Yeah. Yeah. And as Harry gets closer and closer and closer and closer, and then he can't do it. And then
wimped out.
The ghost of Norman Osborn.
Oh, it
evaporates.
Yeah.
He can't do it. And then Harry realizes that he just can't kill him, but he's not going to be Peter's friend. Peter reaches out and Harry rejects it.
Yeah.
He refuses Peter's help. He says, I'm going to go away for a while, and if you dare try to take me in, I am going to tell the world who you are. And the Green Goblin will be back.
Yeah.
Peter stands there and lets him get away, which Peter kind of agonizes about.
Yeah.
For a while. Why did he do it? It's a legitimate question, but it's like you reach a point. It's kind of like when Norman and Peter were sitting laughing and about Mr. Coffee, and there comes a point in time where neither one of you have anything left.
Yeah.
And I mean, Peter could have gone after him theoretically, but Peter doesn't have anything left. Peter's physically traumatized. Probably he is emotionally sapped.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have anything left, and I don't think Harry. It's so. Yeah, it's. I think it's actually kind of logical, and perfectly normal that Peter would just. It's like you've been through this big. I mean, just think of the emotion they've gone through. Just the adrenaline buildup or whatever, and then this thing where Harry tries to kill Peter and he can't, and I can just see the emotions crashing. So it's like Peter probably he's just like about 30 seconds away from just dropping like that. Yeah. So anyway, last few pages, Dad Vermin is watching home movies of him and the boy, and I guess is experiencing regrets.
Yeah.
All right. Then next, Harry sneaks in, pats Normie on the head, and he goes off lost and scared.
Yeah.
We find out that Spider-Man, because Spider-Man has been kind of narrating up to this point, and we find out that he's talking to his parents' graves.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically says, but now, Mother and Father, I can let myself remember. Now I can love you. Now I can grieve.
Mm. And he swings off into the sunrise.
And then he swings off into the sunrise. And I very, very, very cold. This essentially is the end of it. We'll go into the epilogue. But here's another thing I had a problem with it. 6 issues, and you go, that's it. That was my feeling when I read it. That's it. Yeah, the graves are empty.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, wait a minute, Harry flies away. No, wait a minute. I want some kind of resolution. I want Harry to go back to the nut house or something.
I like I told you, I read this this past week because I remember the fans have been asking you with this for years to get this story going. And I read it in 91, and I don't remember any of the Vermin stuff. I do remember the Harry getting taunted by Norman stuff. Yeah. When I was reading it again, I'm like, oh, I remember this. The Vermin stuff is very forgettable. It's just like the Craven stuff with Vermin. It was very forgettable. The B story in this is Harry and Peter's fight.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean, because you feel that the primary story is DeMatteis having to say something about child abuse,
and yes, but he did a good job with the Harry and Peter stuff, didn't he?
Yeah.
You
did
think
fine.
so?
I mean, but again, bringing the parents into it. No,
you don't like that. Yeah.
No, I don't, because it's not. It just doesn't feel. I don't make the connection. Maybe it's me.
He's trying to connect the 3 guys. All have parent issues.
Yeah, but because Peter wasn't abused. Yeah, Peter wasn't abused by his parents because his parents, and he wasn't abused by Uncle Ben and Aunt May. He was loved by Uncle Ben and Aunt May. So we got to come up with this fake trauma, and to me, that's what it is. It's fake trauma. It's not legitimate trauma. I mean, honestly, I mean, I can,
Yeah.
It's not even comparable to the guilt he feels over Ben's death or Captain Stacy's death or Gwen's death. I mean, those are real. I mean, literally traumatic issues where people, died by the consequences of his actions or indirectly or whatever. He wasn't direct. He wasn't responsible. I mean,
would it have been a better connection for you if he would have been mourning Uncle Ben more throughout this story as opposed to Mom and Dad? I mean, that's the traumatic.
Yeah, but that ground has been plowed. I can't see. I mean, the thing with the death of the Stacys and stuff, it's been reinforced over and over and over again. And maybe that's why DeMatteis. Maybe that's why he went to the parent
route. Yeah.
Maybe that's why he went the parent route, because the deaths of everybody else have been plowed over. I don't know, but to me it doesn't fit. Okay.
Josh says the story has flaws, but I like DeMatteis. He said he did a good job delving into Harry's psychology. That's probably your biggest pro, isn't it? With the Norman taunting him.
You
got Emily Osborn out of this.
I know, but it's just it's almost too much. I mean, it's just almost there should have been a little bit less, maybe. I mean, I think he's right. I mean, I think Josh, you're right. We're delving into Harry's psychology. We're getting to the core of what Harry's problem is and why Harry is, basically. And here's another aspect that I feel to it is that Harry, in a way, is a victim, not only of his father, but of his best friend. Okay. because Peter has never been honest with Harry. Here are two of the most
Yeah.
important people in Harry's life. Both were lying to him. Both were bold-faced lying to him. Both were hiding who they
Yeah.
truly were from him. Okay. And both at times made him feel insignificant and weak and worthless. Norman by being a shit father, and Peter, frankly, for never having time for Harry. Peter was a lousy best friend. Whenever Harry wanted to, and I can just imagine whenever Harry wanted to hang out, or talk girls or look at porn or whatever, Peter was off playing Spider-Man. He wasn't doing best buddy things. He wasn't doing, I had, the guy I can still consider my best friend I met in college,
Yeah.
I mean, we drank, we ate pizza, we went to the movies, with girls too, wasn't just us, but it's like, that's the thing you do with a best friend. Peter didn't do that with Harry. Harry needed that. Harry needed that balance from his dad had this psycho worldview. He desperately needed Peter to bring balance into it. Peter didn't have time for Harry. Yeah. And then when Harry is finally starting to reconcile some things and he says, well, maybe I should, in order to maybe redeem my dad's name or make up for what he's done, maybe I should turn the Green Goblin into a force for good. Peter kicks the shit out of him and basically says, you can't do it. You're not good enough. Or at least that's the message Harry takes. Right. So yeah, it is good, but sometimes the dialogue just gets overwrought. I get the point. I understand the problem.
Don't you think the resolution is the big spectacular 200 issue?
But that is the big resolution. But I just spent 6 months going through this story, and I expected more. Yeah, it's not. True. I'm not sitting here thinking like we all are with Nick Spencer, thinking, well, we know we're going to get the end in issue number 75 or 74 or whatever. We have no idea what's coming in issue number 200. Yeah. Okay, we have no idea what's coming in issue number 189. Or and 190 or whatever. We have no idea. All I know is this story ended with a thud. All right.
Yeah. And Josh wants to know what you thought of 189 and 200.
Well, Josh, we've talked about those on earlier Spider History podcasts.
What are the numbers?
Where is my
look
chart?
For podcast numbers? Jared,
I know.
Jared knows them better than I do.
Here we go. Okay.
What Spider History do we review those? You could hear these on the archives.
Right, boys and girls. If you want to hear about, now don't make a liar out of me because I just see, boys and girls. I keep track of every Spider
history. Let me see this. Let me see that. Hold that thing up. Look at that flow chart of how many Spider histories we've done. And oh my gosh, front and back.
Yep.
Good Lord.
And the black is the months where we didn't have them, and it was kind of surprises me because in the year. 2017, we had we didn't have there were a couple of years we didn't do very many at all.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure why. I guess we all had, hell, we have lives, right?
Yeah.
Despite what our critics think, we do have lives, we do have families, and we do have other interests. Come on, don't make me a liar. I know we did it.
I remember editing the cover art for 200. I remember we've done that.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Amazing. Spectacular Spider-Man number 200. We did this on podcast number 68.
Oh, wow. That's an old one.
Yeah, a really old one. In May 2009. Boys and girls, go back to. But that was, see, Spider History actually just started with issue number 59. Issue number 59. Podcast number 50. So really, Spider History was then. It was not Spider History now. So we actually may be due for in May of next year. Maybe we're due to revisit Spectacular 200 in the larger, more glorious Spider History, because I haven't, I'm a little more open earlier than I was to, because I didn't want to, the reason I do this is because I don't want to repeat things. But Spider History definitely was different because it was just a very small part of the crawl space segment. So anyway, so we did that in podcast number 68, and let's see if we
quick. Gary says that I think JR should redo Spider Histories. The old ones are hard to find. So let me tell you a little something, Gary. The podcasts are housed over on Podbean. So if you type in spidermancrawlspace.podbean.com. So let me see if I can do podcast number 68, if that will pull it up from the search.
Apparently we have not done.
Well, you can also do it by what 2009?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We looked at
2009,
in
what month?
May 2009. Number
So we're going to
68.
click on May 2009. There it is, right there. Yeah. Also does several. Yeah.
Also, Jared, impressions.
Does several impressions is worth it. Even Mrs.
Oh, Lord.
Crawlspace answers a question.
But you see, Spider History was part of that, and you can see that Spider
Oh, I
History was
see.
just
It was just a segment.
So
Okay.
back in those days, it was just another
Yeah.
segment. It was
I
like
see.
basically, and I've told this before because we talk about the Spider
Yeah.
history, and because people say, well, why did you do things like this or that or whatever? And I would explain that, like, when Brad would choose a lot of the months, and I would do it because it's like, well, I haven't read a lot of these issues in a long time, so they're new to me as well. But it was just a segment. And basically, Brad would say, hey, you guys remember anything about these issues? And we all sit and we all kind of drew, oh, yeah. And then we'd move on. And then slowly it kind of became my ego. I think my ego kind of took over, and I just started talking louder and longer, and it became its own segment.
I think what they're wanting is what we do now, which is we show the visuals on YouTube. There's also those are just straight up audio ones. Brent says, is that audio even clickable? Yes. When I moved all the episodes over to Podbean, every episode from 1 to the upcoming 700 will be clickable. So yes, Spec 189 is my all-time favorite issue. Would love to see. So did you say we didn't do 189?
I don't think we've done 189. So what I tell you what, boys and girls, because you have demanded it, in the months to come, we will do 189 and probably 190. It may be 192. So I'm not sure.
Are those the hologram covers?
190. Yes. Yeah. I think we're getting into the hologram covers. So I tell you what, we will do that story when the month comes up. And next May, we will do Spectacular Spider-Man 200 again. Okay. Well, there you go. We will do that, boys and girls.
Do you want to make you want to make those the next 2 episodes? No. Let's do them in the months. The whole idea of Spider History is we do them around the months that they came out. Oh, so you want to do next May? So like do this. Okay. We'll do them in the months they come out in. They came out in, because that's kind of like history. We're going back to this month in Spider history, essentially. Yeah. So, and like, for example, these, like obviously this Spectacular 184 is in January, but Spectacular number 179 was August and 180 was September. Right. So that's why we're doing this story during that time period. And that's why, like previously when we did the Maximum Carnage issues, Maximum Carnage started with the May issue. So then we did the 3 parts of Maximum Carnage because it started in May and went on through that month in June and July. Hey, so gang, we got one more issue. Let's get through this. Then we're going to answer your questions and start thinking about what else you want JR to cover. I guess I better start writing this stuff down, huh? Get you a Post-it. Well, we're going to listen to the what the fans want you to cover. Yeah. Mary goes, woo-hoo, yes. Yeah, because originally, early on, one thing I deliberately tried to do was avoid hitting all the top storylines, because everybody did it. Everybody talked about the major storylines, but nobody would go into like some of the really dumb issues and have fun with those. Like one of our all-time favorites was the Stalker from the Stars with Webb or whatever. Webb. Web 24, I think. Nobody would ever go and look at those because it's not one of these stories. But then Banjo. Yeah. So anyway, like Brad said, let's do number 1. Okay, let's get this, and then we're going to take questions at the end. Think of what you want Jared to cover. I've got a long monologue. I got a monologue at the end too, and then we'll take questions. But anyway, Spectacular Spider-Man. Really, this is aftermath. Yeah. Spider-Man is swinging through the city actually he's swinging through the city. He's not looking for Harry, we find out, but he sees somebody. He feels somebody coming behind him. He grabs him, and it's the Molten Man. Well, what had happened was Spidey had contacted the Molten Man because the Molten Man, Mark Raxton. Raxton, of course, is Harry's brother-in-law, because Raxton was Liz's stepbrother. Stepbrother. That's right. Well, stepbrother, brother, whatever. I don't know. It's like my wife and I used to have this argument: is a stepbrother, whatever. But so anyway, basically, he considers Harry his brother-in-law.
Okay, he considers Liz his sister. He considers Harry his brother.
Yeah.
Harry gave him a job. Harry gave him a second chance when the Multiman was a felon. And so Multiman is, I mean, he's really, Spider-Man tells him that Harry's gone off the deep end and become the Goblin again. And Raxton is not happy about it. Raxton kind of, freaks out a little bit about it. He just doesn't think it's fair that Harry has to deal with all these demons. And, Peter says, well, somebody's got to tell Liz, and it's Mark, it's got to be you. Yeah. So, Spider-Man says, he hadn't slept for days because he's been looking for Harry. So Harry's flying around, in his Goblin outfit. He goes and he visits little Normie and tells him that he's got to go away for a while. He's got to figure some things out. Let's see if he calls him beautiful boy.
It's Daddy.
I don't think he
Daddy
does. He just
scared me.
Yeah. So, but basically, he just says he's got to go away and figure some things out. As he goes out, Liz comes in and sees Harry, and this causes Harry to freak out.
Let me get the hell out of here. Yeah.
Harry leaves and starts throwing pumpkin bombs around because basically, being Harry makes him feel weak and worthless, but being the Goblin makes him feel strong, which is something that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense why Harry would be drawn to this, even though his father, it's kind of a symbol of the man, the evil that was his father, but it's also, really, and the power of the Goblin's kind of what intoxicated Norman as well, even though Norman still had powers when he wasn't the Goblin. After the form, but just being the Goblin allowed him to not play by the same rules that coat and tie Norman Osborn had to, coat and tie. And Norman
asked
Osborn.
You a couple, maybe an hour ago, if Vermin transforms like the Hulk, and yes, he does. Look, he looks like a man here.
Yeah,
and then
that's all. Out. And that's all part of the, but anyway, so Harry throws pumpkin bombs around because being the Goblin makes him feel powerful. So we go back to Ravencroft, and this is what we were talking about earlier when that now, according to DeMatteis, now the transformation is as much psychological as it is physical. So here, Vermin has reverted to Edward because Dr. Kafka is being able to reach him. But as you can tell, too, Vermin is still reasserting himself. Yeah. But supposedly, Vermin is getting weaker. Dr. Kafka tells Spider-Man that Vermin, in fact, the reason Vermin is getting, I don't want to say, I just say he's getting weaker, but the reason Vermin is fighting so hard now is that Vermin knows that he is losing, and that Edward will eventually kind of reassert himself. But anyway, Harry said, I was about to say before, Harry's left by saying he'll come back for his family and he'll come back for Spider-Man. Okay. Yeah. Then we go to Edward and Ravencroft. But the thing is, Spider-Man stopped by, not because he cares about Vermin or anything, but he's worried Dr. Kafka saw his face. Because if you remember in a previous issue, he crawled in and he didn't have his mask on. He had because Harry had taken his mask off, and I guess it was conveniently tucked in his spider belt. So Spider-Man's worried that Dr. Kafka saw his face, and she says, "Well, no, I really didn't." And then she kind of says, "Well, yeah, I did see a little part of it."
Yeah, you got a good-looking face, kid.
Yeah. So it's like she wouldn't know who he was. It's anyway.
I like what Donnie just wrote. Imagine if Vermin could transform into an interesting character. That's true.
So we go back to Peter and Mary Jane, and hang on, I make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself. No, they're not there yet.
We go to Liz.
Yeah, well, first we go to Liz and the Molten Man. These are, like I said, these few pages now. Hey, if you love Sal, you're getting plenty of Sal artwork.
You are.
All right.
Ooh, there's Mary Jane.
Then Peter goes back to Mary Jane. And Peter is kind of foaming at the mouth. Why did I let Harry go? Why did I let Harry go? Blah, blah. And then Mary Jane just said, I don't want to hear any of this anymore. Shut up. Let's okay. All right,
let's have Sal do the art and Mary Jane do the talking or lack of it.
Yep.
Boom, boom, boom.
Mary Jane's heard enough. So anyway, but after that, after they,
they do what married people allegedly do. No, just kidding.
Well, no, when you get married and have your kids, you stop doing it. But anyway, that's something else entirely. That's another thing. But anyway, after Peter, showed Mary Jane his Green Goblin, but
stop.
he gets up, dresses up as Spider-Man. Of course,
Look at Mary Jane. She's she knows she's leaving.
She knows he's leaving. He knows he's got to go look for Harry. Spider-Man swings around the city. He sees a green glove. Ha ha! He's got him. But no,
it's Frogman.
Frogman. And that, boys and girls, is the end of the Child Within. So there
he is right here.
Yeah. All right.
Ends with Frogman. So we leave a very we switch gears dramatically to a humor comic next issue.
Yeah, which is logical. I mean, to be honest, this has been
this frog.
Yeah. All right. Now there's a lot to unpack here. Okay. I mean, no doubt. This is a very, like I said, this is a very important story in Spider-Man mythologies. Very important story with Harry, because at this point, Harry has passed the point of no return. He comes back 6 months later, like I said, with the weird dinner party from hell, and then gets committed to Ravencroft, where at the time he obviously, with the chameleon, devises the robot parent scheme. Yeah. And then he's released in 200 and comes back and obviously dies in that issue. The thing is, though, I guess we'll find out if he really did die or not coming up here by September. We may. So by the time we talk about issue 189, and by the time we revisit Spectacular 200, he may really be. I don't know. It may have an entirely new. We may be able to put an entirely. That's another reason why I thought it'd be a good idea to revisit Spectacular 200 in May, because by then we'll have an idea of exactly, maybe there'll be a new spin on the story.
Eric wants to know if there's ever going to be a Marvel Legends Vermin. And I don't remember if there had been an action figure, so I searched for it, and there has been. Look at this. There is a Marvel History of the Dark. It was a previews exclusive Vermin action figure. You can go on eBay and pick that up if you really look, he comes with a fire hydrant.
Why, to pee on it? What does Vermin do? What does he do? Lift up his leg and pee on the fire hydrant?
What are those things on the left? What are those right here? What are those?
Look like fireplace pokers.
He comes with fireplace pokers and a fire hydrant.
Yeah, it's like, what? Is he going to pee on the fire hydrant and then go in and stoke up a fire or something? Maybe he's going to read another story to his little boy he created in his mind. But I don't know. Here's the thing. And again, I don't want to mitigate. It's like I don't want to mitigate the seriousness of child abuse, child molestation. That was never my intent. I don't like it being, I don't know. It's like, and this is where I get, but again, you got to remember the mid to late 80s, that was 90s, a cause celeb. Yeah. Everybody had to say something about it. All the celebrities had to say, everybody had, I have something to say about this issue, and you kind of felt like it was in a way, like the last 4 years, that everybody had to say something about our president, love him, loathe him, whatever. But it's like, I have to make this stand. I have to say something. Well, no, you don't. Yeah. No, you don't. We don't care what you think. It's like, we know this issue is going on. What do you think you can bring to the table? So, not mitigating the issue, but, again, it's like, oh God, here is another story that somebody thinks they have, they have to say something, and I just can't stand that. Okay. And again, like I said, I always felt that Vermin, again, like with Craven's Last Hunt, it fractured the narrative. The story is about Harry and Peter. That's the story we're interested in. Vermin takes up at least half of it. Another thing too, which I like I said before, Dr. Kafka is only concerned about Vermin. The whole story. Mm-hmm. She never expresses any concern or feeling about any of the people. She knew these people probably. She worked with some of them, knew that they had families, kids. It's like maybe maybe there could have been a panel or two, when there could have been a panel where Spider-Man is like getting on Dr. Kafka, for psychobabble, and Dr. Kafka screams back at him and said, I knew these people. I cared about these people. I'm the godmother to a couple of their kids. Don't you think I don't care about these people? That would have been it. That would have been fine. But we didn't get that. So and here's another thing. So we're all concerned about Vermin's psyche and his childhood. We're all concerned about Harry Osborn's psyche and his poor childhood. There's somebody else's childhood that we don't get into. There's somebody else's childhood.
Mary Jane?
No.
Who?
Another person who's the bad guy, but we don't give him any sympathy. We don't give him any worry. We don't wonder where his nurturing was. Norman Osborn.
Oh, Norman. Okay.
Norman is just the bad guy during the whole plot. So it's funny. I mean, again, but it didn't belong here. Okay, that's the difference. And we've had stories later that dealt with Norman's psyche. In fact, DeMatteis even himself, I believe, in a Spectacular Spider-Man Annual 14, actually goes into Norman's psyche a little bit, where we find out that Norman himself had a traumatic childhood. But I mean, it's just kind of funny that we spend all this time about it's like, well, wait a minute. What about Norman Osborn? Why don't we care about him? Why don't we worry about his hurt feelings? Yeah. So I mean, again, there was no play. I just felt it was ironic because we spilled so much ink on the other two. And like, here's another person who basically his trauma is what's kicked off a lot of this, but we don't care about him. So, like I said, this stuff gets messy, when you're trying to do, and it's almost like with, again, I guess because DeMatteis likes to get so deep and dark, I think sometimes you wind up, it gets to be a very messy story because you really do start getting into the complexity of human emotions and people not being either good or bad. But the thing is, he comes across so strong in one way. It's kind of like, but you're not, it's not balanced. It's certainly, I don't feel it's a balanced portrait of the psychological issues.
The chat is still talking about the Vermin action figure I showed. I've got a better picture of him with a fire hydrant.
I see that he's probably, the whole idea is he's probably supposed to come out of the sewers, come out of the street, and usually, of course, on the sidewalk, there's a fire hydrant. Brent, it looks like he's there to pee on it.
Brent says Vermin should come with a rat and the little boy he imagined instead of the accessories. Eric says, I need that fire hydrant. There you go. We've got our first super chat of the night from Josh. Wants to know our favorite Spider-Man stories by DeMatteis. Well, the obvious ones that come to my mind, Kraven's Last Hunt. I liked the Lost Years he did with Ben Reilly. I thought that was good. Amazing 400 come to mind. Spec 200 come to mind. What about you, JR?
Well, I feel that DeMatteis's run on Spectacular Spider-Man after the Clone Saga was very strong. When they brought Norman back. And again, talk about going into psychological issues. DeMatteis pursued more psychological issues. He had Norman captured Spider-Man and had him, hooked up or whatever and was, blah, blah, blah. So, DeMatteis at the, during that run, he was weaving a whole lot of, unfortunately, that's the thing. He didn't know where he was going with some of them. And I think maybe that's what happens with some of his stories is, okay, I've got this great idea. And then as you start to plot it out, the stories, it just kind of gets lost. But he had a whole lot of subplots going on. They were very interesting subplots. He had Jack-O-Lantern back, but who was this Jack-O-Lantern? He had another villain he had created called Conundrum. Who was this? They both considered the late Mysterio at that time to be a mentor to them. What was the connection of Jack-O-Lantern to Mrs. Jameson at that time? Because it appeared there was, it appeared there might have been some connection there because whatever went on between Jack-O-Lantern and Jonah was very, very personal because Jack-O-Lantern basically was working for Norman at the time to blackmail Jonah into selling Norman half of the Bugle. And basically when Norman tried to pay him, Jack-O-Lantern burned all the money and said, I didn't do this for money. I said, this was personal. So a lot of stories were being weaved. Anna Watson was kind of acting a little weird because of it was Peter's relationship with Mary Jane was kind of reminding her of her relationship with somebody because Peter always, this is what was funny, a truly honest moment. Peter came in late again one night and Anna was chewing him out and Mary Jane had enough and said he leaves because he's Spider-Man, which would have been an honest thing. Yeah. But of course, blah, blah. But anyway, no, I like DeMatteis's run. And that's one reason I hated the reboot because it just 3 of the 4 writers had some very interesting stories going on, very interesting subplots going on, and it all was thrown into the shitter.
Yeah. You like Lost Years? No, you don't?
No, because it's Ben Reilly. Who gives a shit about Ben Reilly? Well, who gives a shit? And plus, Kane looked like a Klingon. The art was terrible. I mean,
no,
the art was terrible.
no, it was not. That was
It
John
was.
Romita. He did have a lot of hair, but yeah, I'll give you that.
He looked like a Klingon.
RJK153. Hi, JR. First fan Bob K here.
Oh, hey,
Glad to
I
see you're still
remember
active
Bob
with
K.
Refresh
I
me-
called you the first. That's right. I called him the first fan because he was the first one
Wow.
to send me an email on my my Spidey Kicks Butt website.
Oh wow,
he was the first one.
Wow.
So and I called him first fan. So yes, glad to see you come back. You've probably aged a heck of a lot better than I have, as you can see. But yeah, I gave up writing, but for a lot of reasons, time was an issue, but also kind of because the crawl space kind of supplanted some of that. It's like the impetus to write kind of was, I had that outlet. Brad essentially, poor delusional fool that he was, when he invited me on podcast number 3, kind of gave me that outlet. And plus, like I said, the writing took a lot of time. And when I stopped writing, I realized some of the things I should have been doing, with my job and my family or whatever, I wasn't doing because I was writing. So I was trying to correct that that balance. But thank you,
RJ.
Bob. Good to see you.
He's impressed. Your brain remembers them. So there you go.
I remember. I remember a lot of people who wrote me. I remember, and I don't want to throw out names because I don't want anybody to feel. But during the old Hero Realm days, George, I owe a lot to Mr. Berryman for bringing me on with Hero Realm, because I think that's when you discovered me. I think I don't know, maybe you knew me before.
No, I discovered you from Spidey Kicks Butt. That's where I first saw you.
But George gave me, with his Hero Realm, him and Alex Hamby, they let me write a monthly column, and so I remember. I remember some of the people who were there too. So
we have someone from Brazil watching over on Twitch. There you go.
Hello.
He wants us to stop talking about goblins and talk about Miles Morales.
No, don't think so. Don't think so.
Well,
don't think. And here I was. Wait a minute. Isn't Humberto from Brazil?
I think so. Yeah, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
All right. So I asked the folks what they would like to see JR cover for future Spider histories. I will pop some of these up. Gary and the Frozen wants a death in the family and the death of Gwen Stacy. And the end of the Green Goblin, I like to see JR cover if it hasn't already been done too recently.
Well, here's the thing, boys and girls, and that's another reason why and here I was writing. So hang on a second. And that's another reason why a lot of times I let Brad come up with a story with the ideas, because you know me, I'm a Goblin fan.
Yeah.
Okay. I would talk about Goblin stories all the time.
Yeah.
And Death of Gwen Stacy, I deliberately avoided because, one, it's a story everybody has talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too sure what new I could bring to it, to be honest. And it's kind of like with Craven's Last Hunt and The Child Within. I knew, like, for example, and even Secret Wars, I know that I'm the minority. I don't like those stories. Okay. So I can bring up things that maybe other people don't bring up because everybody's smitten with these stories. I'm not so sure what I could bring to some of these. Not that I'll never do them, of course, obviously, because we've been doing this for what now, 12 years, Brad?
No, we've been doing the podcast 15.
Yeah, but since Spider History, I think started in 2009, January 2009. Death in the Family would be a great story. I wrote about. See, that's also a story I wrote about. In my old Spidey Kicks Butt articles are still up on the crawl space. Yeah, I believe, unless Brad has shit canned them.
No can of shit has been happening.
Okay. So, if you want to read, I wrote about Death in the Family to a great extent. So I understand it, but probably if I do Harry Goblin stories, 2 of them over the next 8 months, probably not have any other Goblin stuff in between.
My as I requested, my recommendation is I would like an all episode Spidey Super Stories, like maybe 3 or 4 issues of you. That's my request. Because those are absolutely hysterical and you really bring the funny. Peter Palmer.
Speaking of Spidey Super Stories,
yes.
Brad, you saw Loki Part 5, didn't you?
Yes, we talked about that on the Spider News segment that you were not on.
with Thanos copter.
I talked about how Spidey Super Stories has been referenced twice this year in media. So there was the Thanos copter from Spidey Super Stories, and also Marvel Legends. They're making a Webman. So a Webman action figure from a Spidey Super Story. So I'm loving that. Maybe have we done the Thanos Copter Spidey Super Story?
You've brought it up once, but we never did it for
okay,
various
that
reasons.
issue and do Webman. It's timely this year. Those are the Webman and the Thanos Copter.
When was
and
Webman?
one more? Webman was
Web?
like in issue 30-ish something. I can find it for you. So, and we'll pick one more that's timely for this year or something like that.
Because to me, I really didn't enjoy Loki that much, frankly. I haven't really enjoyed any of these Disney Plus series.
Really?
I loathe Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And Loki really didn't do anything for me. But I remember I watched the first 4 issues with my wife and son or whatever. Of course, Spencer's a big comic.
Did you see the last Loki?
I did see the last Loki, with Kang the Conqueror, who wasn't called Kang the Conqueror, but anyway. So I'm sitting on the couch. I'm actually doing some work because I was trying to catch up on some work, and all of a sudden Spencer says Thanos Copter, and of course I know what the hell is it? Whatever. I ignored it, and then I found. It's like, holy cow, they really did see the Thanos.
By going through all the Spider-Man forums, people were trying to look at all the minutia on that planet of just junk. And one person said there was like a subway train, and they were like, "Oh, that's when Tobey Maguire was holding it from crashing. There it is, right there next to the Thanos Copter." I'm like, "No, that's just a subway." Anyway, Peter Palmer's request is Spec 189. We've talked about that. He wants that on Spider History.
We will do 189, and I think it's 192, is it or not? But I will give you that one, and I will give you 200 in May. But like I said, probably not any other Goblin stories.
May of 2022. Peter Palmer.
That is if I don't retire like George did.
Don't retire.
Maybe it's time for me to retire Spider History.
No.
Maybe I'm 58 years old. Maybe it's time for me to go. It's like I'm no longer in the demographic. I'm no longer a part of the young audience that you seek, Brad.
Your numbers are increasing, so hush. I just looked up 27 people are watching us right now. Peter Palmer, Identity Crisis, where Peter takes on 4. That one's been mentioned a lot. We've never done that one, have we?
Brad has mentioned that before, and that's kind of in the back of my mind. I got to find out the months that it was done.
That people love that one.
It's not one of my favorites, but it's not a bad one.
It's not either. Mary Jane makes some of the costumes, if not all 4. I don't know. What can you name them? There's Silk.
No, it was.
No, it's not Silk.
It was Prodigy.
American Online.
God,
hold on. Prodigy.
The Hornet was the Hornet one.
The Hornet, yeah. You got 2 out of 4. What's
Dusk.
the other one? Dusk, not Silk. Yeah, Dusk and.
It was the black and white
Ricochet. There it is. We got him.
There we go.
Yeah, they
all right. Well, okay. Identity Crisis is on the list. I'll have to figure out I'll have to go back and see what months it was.
Let's see. What else are the requests?
But the thing is, though, I don't know. Maybe it depends. If we see who we're supposed to see, people are saying we're seeing Spider-Man Far From Home. If that turns out to be a good movie, who knows what that could unleash, to be honest.
Norman, yeah. Let's see what else we got. Death in the Family. Oh, we've already done that one.
Go look in the Spidey Kicksped archives for Death in the Family. That's pretty well everything I have. See, I've already said a lot about Death in the Family. That's why I'd be reluctant to revisit it, because I've said a lot about that already.
Peter Palmer, Identity Crisis again. He wants us to talk about Miles Morales.
I'll talk about Miles Morales. I don't like Miles Morales, but Spencer has the Miles Morales game, and he plays it. It's funny because actually this is maybe I need to drag Spencer down here or whatever. Spencer is in the demographic, and whenever I rant and rave like an old man, it's funny. Spencer does prefer the old stuff, but he likes the new stuff too. Yeah. So he and I kind of spar back and forth, because, he just, pretty well, I'm just pretty well a grumpy old man who won't change.
Hornacek is requesting those annuals, I think from 95.
The Planet of the Symbiote Super Specials.
Have we done those? I don't think
we haven't. That's an all-time.
That's a pretty good one. That was, and
I
know you're not reading Venom, but that was kind of retconned about why they're on a planet. They're wrapping the planet up to keep Null in is what.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All righty here. Okay, we got these that are in the really strong 189, 200 of spec, Identity Crisis, Planet of the Symbiotes, and we'll
There you
invite George
go.
for that one. We'll make sure. In fact, now that George is quitting spider fights or whatever, maybe he'll be able to stay up long enough to join us for Planet
Yeah,
of the
history.
Symbiotes. We've got to do
Hornacek
Planet of the
says,
Symbiotes.
"Why don't we do the facade mystery that was never solved?" That was pretty. That was still talked about.
Yeah, it is. You know, to be
Yeah.
honest, though, there's good, bad, and fun, bad, and then there's just bad.
And that's Terry Kavanaugh bad.
Yeah,
If
again, folks. I mean, really, folks. When I pick these spider histories too,
you want to have fun,
like I said, and I don't know, maybe if I go back at facade there, but I have a feeling that because I sometimes I go and I see if I can do anything with a story. You know, like, can I have fun with this story? Is there something we can talk about with this story? Is there like an old Easter egg, or sometimes I think stories are so, I'll give you Stalker from the Stars. One of the
you could have fun with that. Yeah.
We had a blast with that one. And that's just one of the most awful Spider-Man stories
I think
ever
you could with facade. I honestly do.
I don't know though. We'll see. Maybe I'll take another look at it, but sometimes bad is bad. And
Eric wants to say there's some good Tangled Web stories, or is just main title. No, Tangled Web falls under it. It's all Spider-Man. So
yeah, we've done
Origin
Tangled
of the Bar with No Name. I think that one came from Captain America, Eric.
Yeah, so, we did Tango Web with the Tombstone in Jail story. So we did that. Yeah. There were some good ones. There was, like I said, I think everybody's favorite of that run is either Kingpin, the Severance package, which I think was number 4, and then with Jonah behind the mustache.
Was Tangled Web? No, it was Web Spinners. It had a nice black suit Spider-Man with Silver Sable run by
that was
Friends and DeFalco.
Yeah. But no, those we've been focusing on storylines really for the last year or so. But we still do sometimes the month to month. You know. But we could possibly still get to those.
Gary says, Brad, do you own all the Spidey Super Stories issues? You know what? That's where my Spider collection is lacking. I do not own them. And they haven't been reprinted. And I've actually been wanting to build up that, but they're getting expensive, especially that Thanos Copter issue. That's $100 book.
Yeah, and they are. When I was rebuilding my collection, like for example, like as I've told people, you know, I stopped and started reading Spider-Man off and on, and then when I started writing my columns, I said, well, crap, I better go back and fill in the gaps here. So I mean, again, you know, and I come from an area, I live in the Cleveland area now, and unfortunately the years have not been too kind to comic book shops, but there were gobs of comic book shops and they had sales, and I used to be able to get like 7 comics for $1, you know, and I just built up my old collection. But Spidey Super Story, I mean, like I bought the old every Marvel team up I could find. Spidey Super Stories is hard to find. Yeah. And when you do find them, they were expensive. Yeah. I've got the first 24 and then I stopped after that. So,
well, yeah, you were like many because it was a kiddie book. It was a little kiddie book. And if you bought it, you were too old, but I was the perfect age for Spidey Super Stories. I had a subscription to it. And I used to also, along with Spidey Super Stories, in addition to the Amazing I used to get, there was an Electric Company magazine, like a regular size magazine. And in the back of that Electric Company magazine was Spider-Man stories. And I used to pick up that magazine just for that. So, yeah.
You know, this is the crazy thing. I don't know how much licensing cost. I don't know how much money Marvel makes per graphic novel or whatever, but to be honest, I have a hard time believing those things didn't get reprinted, have never been reprinted.
There is one trade paperback from the 80s that did like Super Stories, but that was it. Yeah.
It's like, God forbid you pay somebody $5, and I know it's more than $5, folks, don't write. Yeah. But come on, I mean, is it really that much of a big deal to pay somebody for?
Well, they probably got to pay.
It's like
Morgan Freeman some royalties. He's in the book.
Well, hell, you can't recognize him though. You can't recognize any of them. But no, it's like, for example, I ran into this in Star Trek, for example. Like when Voyager, wanted to use instead of him, Robert McNeil's character being Tom Paris, it was supposed to be Nick Letourneau again. It was a character from Next Generation who had done the things Tom Paris did, but they didn't want to pay a royalty to the writer of the Nick Locarno story. It's like, what is this, people? It's like, are you so cheap?
Josh says he wants JR to cover the original Tombstone arc. Another one of my favorites that he doesn't like for some wrong reason.
All right, Joshua. You know what? I'm going to let Hornacek out of the room. You're in it now.
Well, that's tied into modern stories. The Tombstone Robbie stuff. How many issues is that arc? That seems like it's a dozen or so. It went on for a while.
It's
the Tombstone story.
The reason I didn't like the Tombstone arc is because I never understood his relationship with Robbie, and frankly, it seemed creepy. I didn't understand it. Mm-hmm. It was like, in fact, I think Spencer has done a better job with it than Jerry Conway ever did. Right. I didn't really care much for Tombstone for that reason, but recently it kind of makes sense. There's none of this creepy Robbie. I thought we were friends. Type stuff. It's we were friends, we were enemies, but whatever.
Yeah. And you mentioned you said the R word, and that got the fans upset. Gary in the Frozen said, "Don't retire, JR." Mary says, "Don't retire, JR." Jim says, "I wanted to retire, but I will never retire from comics."
I would love to retire for real, but I got 5 more years, I think. But
Iris says, "Death of Gene DeWolf." I think we've done that one, haven't we?
We might have.
Yeah.
I know. I'd have to look. I'd have to
think
look.
We have.
But like I said, I've avoided doing, again, some of the really, really famous stories because they've been done.
Slingers doesn't really have Peter in it. It's like a 10-issue series, Sarah.
Yeah.
But the one the spinoff from Identity Crisis is on the table because Spider-Man. Why isn't the Hobgoblin good enough? Love that story.
What do you mean good enough?
I don't know. I think this Hobgoblin's very well loved with Spider-Man.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Here's another thing. Again, in the Spidey Kicks Butt archives, I wrote a very extensive thing about the Hobgoblin. That doesn't mean we'll never do it. But kind of like I've said before, I've deliberately tried to avoid the stories that are so famous because they've been hit over and over and over again by other people. And I don't want to I don't want to tread the same ground that somebody else has tread over and over, or that somebody else has done better. Or if I can't bring my own unique, insanity to it, for example.
Yeah.
So
Corner 6 says, "Doesn't Facade end with Spider-Man beating Ben Reilly on the roof?" I think it does.
I believe it does.
Yeah. So there you go.
Okay.
So we have one more Facade request. Brent is talking about Facade and One More Day. We reviewed One More Day because this podcast is so old. We did it when it came out back in 2008.
Yeah. Here's the thing. That's one. I tell you again. It's like, depending on how long we do this, or before Brad fires me, or
I fire myself,
or he's forced to fire him because some Twitter mob wants to cancel me. But fortunately, I'm not. Fortunately, I'm not famous enough. That's one of the things about being under the radar, But actually, me joining the crawl space is kind of like that's a boundary I don't go past on Spider History because we all talked about those issues. I've usually. Brad, that's how it started out, was a review. We started reviewing Civil War.
We did.
So really, actually, Civil War is kind of the last modern thing I talked about.
And my God, man, that's so long ago.
Yeah.
Me calling you up on the phone and patching up. Now we're broadcasting visuals.
Yeah.
And we got images. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's scary. I have a face for radio. But actually, that's kind of the reason I haven't gone into the Brand New Day stuff on Spider History, is because we covered a lot of that during the podcast. It wouldn't be new ground, for example.
We have a request. I've seen this request a lot. Cult of Love. Betty joins a cult. That's a good one, King Hillbilly. I've seen that one requested. Oh, Cosmic Spider-Man Adventures. Gary in the Frozen. That's a good one where he takes on Magneto and punches the Hulk in the atmosphere.
We've done bits and pieces of that when it's covered under the monthly thing. But I actually did like that concept. I really did. Just like, what if Spider-Man could fly? What if Spider-Man were? I mean, just let's not take it too seriously and just let it have it. And they did it within the continuity of the Marvel Universe by the Captain Universe powers. So.
Brad skipped my request completely. Sadly, no, I didn't. I just put it on the screen. There's so many comments, Brent. I'm trying to get through them. Eric says, "Cult of Love, second request. That story is damn weird."
Cult of Love. I tell you
Web.
what, whenever I get some time, I'm going to have to go through all these and see what months they were covered
How
under.
about Captain Universe Spidey? Yep, that's second request for that.
Yeah. I don't know. That lasted. I have to see how many issues that lasted, but it's a lot of stuff we have. I don't know. It may be worth it.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, I don't know if that gets into the Lobo Brothers thing, and I really hate it. I didn't like that.
Brad,
story
can you do a collection video showing off your Spider-Man collection? That's the production of that isn't as easy as me having a guest on. That would require a lot of work. I like to hold things up at the camera and say, "Look at my Frogman. Look at my." This is JR's Kryptonite. My Secret Wars figures.
I still have the black costume Secret Wars thing.
It's right here. I got it right here.
Here. That was the first.
That was so cool.
That was one of the first Secret Wars toys. I think was the black costume, and of course, I mean, be honest, I wish Spider-Man still wore the black costume. I really,
really.
Yeah. I think that was a better costume for a character who prowls around during the night. And, I do. The thing is, though, I mean, the red and blues are so iconic.
Yeah.
But I really thought the black suit was more appropriate for a
Spider-Man. Any Pursuit, the 4-part of Spider-Man hunting down the chameleon after the robot parents died.
We did that. Yeah. But we did. I know I personally didn't do it very well, but I have to take a break from that for a while.
Jim is asking for Spec 57 to 60 with the Beetle. That's one of his favorites.
That's Stern Spectacular. That's not a bad era.
Yeah. Vinkman says he has that trade of the best of Spidey Super Stories. I showed it during the live callers. Yep. I remember that. Super Dave also has that trade.
That would be, they should reprint those. They really should.
How about Spider-Man Acts of Vengeance stories?
Is that still the Spider-Man Captain Universe thing?
It is. Yeah, because he goes up against Magneto and Graviton.
Yeah.
And George did a Fight Club with from Web where they're all fighting on the wall with Giant Man, maybe Titania or something like that. Josh says, speaking of Hobgoblin, what does JR think of ASM 289 after all these years? Does he still hate it?
I haven't read it in a long time, but I imagine now that I know that it's not the end of the story, I might go back and have a different look at it. But to be honest, it was just a hell of a horrible cheat story. It was offensive. I can't, Peter David says that it was supposed to be another fake out. I have my doubts. I think that was, I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, obviously I'm not calling him a liar. Obviously he knows I don't, but, it just, the thing is there've been so many fake outs. It's like, was this really going to be another fake out? So
we have a second request for One More Day out of Mary. JR, if One More Day gets undone by Spencer, would revisiting during Spider history be an option that makes sense? I
don't know. Maybe the thing is, though, all of us covered One More Day, during the podcast, and like I said, I wrote extensively about One More Day in Spidey Kicks Butt. So, again, we'll see. We'll see.
Eric just went to eBay and found that Webman issue's going for $500 graded. See, I'm not buying them graded. I don't like CGC comics. I like mine. What do they call them now? Naked. I like my comics naked.
Well, hey, I bag and board them. I mean,
I bag and board them too. But that's
But I mean, and there might be like, for example, I might put like Amazing 39 in a case or something. But comic books are meant to be, unless you've got Action 1 or Detective 27 or Amazing Fantasy 15, comic books are meant to be read.
I think we've done the Gang War from RJKS.
We've done, we did do that one because that one was
Daredevil is in a Kingpin
fat suit.
That's weird.
Yeah, it was. I had some fun with that because they're all trying to fake Spider-Man out. There's a Kingpin, and Spider-Man goes and it's Daredevil in a fat.
That was so weird. We got another vote for Facade. Brent was the first to vote for Facade. I was referencing that comment being missed.
I'll put him down and
three
see
of us have
out,
now.
I ain't promising anything.
Hope you do it, and no matter whose idea it was.
Boy, that was such a God. It was Lance. They killed off Lance Bannon for no good reason. I mean, and they tried to make you think that possibly Jonah or John Jameson was no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
They introduced this smarmy Arthur Bryce character who was supposed
Remember
to be so
Lance Bannon's girlfriend that was making out with Peter when Mary Jane came back? What was her name?
well, yeah, she was flirting with Peter, but
No, they
yeah,
were making out.
it was just a stupid ass story.
He had lipstick all over him. Has the burglar been covered? Return of the Burglar, ASM 200.
I think we did ASM 200. I believe we did.
Yep, that's a Marv Wolfman, right?
Yes, it is.
All right, here's an exclusive news that I haven't mentioned before. I sent an email to Marv Wolfman. He will be on the show later this year.
Oh, right.
He has agreed to be on the show in the fall. So
we did cover Amazing 200 in January 2014. But anyway, Marv Wolfman.
Marv Wolfman's agreed to be on the show. So that'll be fun to talk about that storyline because that's one of my favorites. What are some big big events in Wolfman's run? We got the Return of the Burglar. Aunt May died.
Introduction to the Black Cat.
Oh yeah, introduction back. He done a lot.
Marv Wolfman. That's the thing.
He's a great writer.
Marv Wolfman. His run on Amazing was amazing.
Literally.
But no, I remember, when Len Wein went off and Marv Wolfman, Wolfman just started off right out of the box with the first proposal, Peter's first proposal to Mary Jane. And then, Peter graduated college or was graduated from college. That happened in issue 185. Then there was the introduction of the Black Cat. Then obviously then the burglar story. Aunt May went into a nursing home. Then the burglar story, and plus you just really felt things. I mean, Peter went to work for the Daily Globe for Barney Bushkin.
You're right.
But there was this mysterious publisher by the name of
Spencer Smythe died. Jonah handcuffed to the bottom.
Yeah, and there was a Jonah moment where Jonah, again, kind of why Spider-Man was his personal devil, because Spider-Man, is one of the few people that has seen Jonah at his weakest. It's just kind of like one reason why I emphasize that Spider-Man was his personal devil.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, like I said, the whole thing with the Daily Globe, all interesting stories. It was every issue. You just felt something was happening or something was going to happen or is leading into something that was happening. And then he left because he got, and from what I understand, and again, maybe Brad will ask about this, around basically when Jim Shooter came in, Jim Shooter just, it's kind of funny. I mean, obviously I think a lot of people credit Shooter with saving Marvel Comics or helping Marvel Comics reach another plateau. But unfortunately, by the means that he did that, alienated a lot of other writers, a lot of people. He ended the rotating writer-editor thing, which it pissed off a lot of people. And apparently he was just one of those people who had a terrible managerial style. Because, if you read it, Shooter improved royalties for people, payments, other things, did a lot of things to try to make writers and artists' lives better, but he thoroughly mishandled the Kirby returning art thing. He just had a way of being his own. Like, I think someone said he couldn't get out of his own way.
Read he helped Steve Ditko get work. I've read that and heard that. So that's
he did a lot of positive things for people, but apparently, and I've been in situations, for example, where a manager who's not so good and who has kind of let things go, you kind of get used to working around a bad manager if he's not one of those psycho guys, or people, because sometimes everybody kind of fills in the gaps and manages when the manager won't manage. But then when he gets replaced by somebody who tries to manage, good or for bad, when they try to pull all that back, it just creates a lot of anger and resentment, and there's usually a lot of mishandling, and that's kind of what Shooter's run reminds me of. Somebody who had to come in, who had to fix the manager, who had to fix it, but in fixing it, just alienated a lot of people.
Wolfman's successor was Denny O'Neil, and Josh Nelson says to make JR suffer for our entertainment, he should do an extended episode where he covers Denny O'Neil's entire run in one sitting.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Joshua, and like, by the way, you're staying in that room. You ain't getting out this month.
JR does timeout on his segments. Yes.
I can see a lot of merit in doing just things like that. Like all the 12. The problem is I really almost
Is it
doubt
only 12 issues?
it's not much, 15 maybe, because I think he started with issue number 207, because Stern did 206, which was a fill-in. That's where he explained this whole Jonah Harrell thing.
The thing about Denny O'Neil's run, and I have a similar bias to it that I do with Amazing Friends. That was my peak seal the deal. I'm a Spider-Man fan for life, because I started getting Amazing Spider-Man as a subscription during Denny O'Neil's run, and it would come in the envelope.
Yep.
And that's, what is that, 1980?
Yeah, I remember those little brown envelopes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was 5 at the time. I was 5 years old getting a Spider-Man subscription in the mail. And I distinctly remember Namor on the cover with Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Hydra Man and Spider-Man fighting with that big monster. And for 5-year-old Brad, that was cool. Yeah. And then he had a weird neighbor called Pinky. That was Pinky, a country singer.
Lonesome Pinky.
Lonesome Pinky. And I'm like, well, Pinky, that's kind of funny. Yeah. But then when 5-year-old Brad became 7-year-old Brad, he got into the Roger Stern stuff and the JR, and I was like, oh, then the Hobgoblin. But to 5-year-old Brad, Denny O'Neil stuff was awesome.
Well, and boys and girls, that pretty well tells you all. In fact, I think really it's because Denny O'Neil's from Missouri, and I think Brad is just covering up for a fellow Missourian. But here's another thing why over the years I don't know if that would be because I don't think Denny O'Neil wrote a lot of those stories.
Yeah, I think said that.
Because I believe in Jim Shooter's blog, which was really a great blog. I don't know why he stopped it. Maybe people threatened to sue him. I don't know. But he pretty well implied or said outright
he had other people writing
that he had other people write for him, that he had interns write for him, and of course he also said that when Denny hacked, he hacked badly. But and that kind of makes sense, like how amateurish some of the stories are, because you think somebody like Denny O'Neil with his experience in writing Batman and stuff, how could he write this dreadful one? He didn't like Spider-Man. I think he got the job as, I think he owed, basically he was a comics legend. He was down on his luck. Somebody gave him a job, hopefully, hopefully we all have people in our lives that are looking after us when we're at our lowest. But he was not a Spider-Man fan. He did not care for the character. And he also famously was dealing with substance abuse issues. I honestly believe he didn't write those stories. If he didn't write them, I'm not so sure what the point is of picking on him,
Right. I actually, before he passed away, I was in communication with getting him on the show. And I was wanting to ask him about his time because it was a very short time, and I had heard those rumors also, and I wanted to get his side of it, but unfortunately he passed away before.
Yeah, I think and I looked for like interviews. I don't know that he's ever really talked about.
He doesn't ever talk Spider-Man at all, so that's why I thought it would make a good show. But he was I got on it too late. I mean, I've been doing this show 15 years. I had plenty of opportunity to get Denny O'Neil on before, and it just didn't happen.
But the fact that his run didn't even last 2 years, back in those days when runs lasted, there was something wrong, and Marvel knew it at the time, and they made the change to Roger Stern because
the original Carrion. I think we've done. I
think we've done that.
Oh, Amy Powell, that's her name. Yes. There you go, Jim. That's a good one. Tarantula and Will-O-Wisp and ASM 233.
We might have done part of that. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. Eric agrees with me about CGC grades. He's not a fan. Hornacek, Josh, you really want to stay in JR's punishment room. Hornacek is excited about our interview with Wolfman coming up. Let's see. Did Wolfman write The Affair with Betty, or was that pre?
Well, it's funny. He wrote it, but he doesn't remember anything about it. Okay. Because, again, there's a little story behind this. It was because it's one of those things like, remember the late Josh Bertoni or whatever, Bertoni
He's
Beetle.
Not late. He's still alive.
But he was one of my early fans too. And before he became on the podcast, he was an early fan. And I kind of blew off whether or not Peter had an affair with Betty. I didn't think they had, and he basically wrote me and said, "Well, take another look at that panel."
Mm-hmm.
And it was it was obviously strongly implied that they had done something in between panels, but he did follow up with Wolfman, and Wolfman says, "I don't remember it."
Yeah.
So he probably would. Again, these guys, we remember this is the thing. We remember these things, we dive back into the back issue bin and we remember these things and we remember where we were when we got the issues. These guys, maybe they love the characters, but to them it was a job.
Yeah.
They wrote the stories and, like they wrote tons of different stories for different characters.
Yeah.
They don't remember. I mean, it's disappointing that they're not as invested as we are, but they really don't.
Yeah.
And they probably cringe.
How about a 10-minute warning, JR? We're going to wrap it up in about 10 minutes.
Good idea. Good idea. It's 1 o'clock.
The comments are coming in fast, and we're even gaining viewers, which is crazy. RJK says, "How about stories that Doc Ock was scared to death of Spidey and would freeze when he would fight him around the 290s in ASM?"
I think we did the issue where he finally came out of that. But it's funny. The in Spectacular, I think Jim Owsley / Christopher Priest referred to one of those stories because of the cover he was wearing, looked like a dentist smock. So it was Dr. Octopus, Dr. Octopus, Deadly Dentist.
Brent says, "Would you do overview of runs in general, like Jenkins' Peter Parker run, or some of the one-off stories like 35 or 33? Are those the ones with the baseball game? And
the baseball game is
snowball
one of them,
fight, I think."
Yeah, the baseball game. The baseball game was a very special one for me too. Not a bad idea. Yeah.
Nintendo says, "Don't forget annuals 14 and 15 of Amazing. Those were O'Neill issues too that need to be covered." Oh wow!
I don't think they were that bad though, were they?
No, the annuals were good. 15 was the Punisher one, right? Because George just did that one on Fight Club. Yeah. With Punisher and Doc Ock.
In fact, I think one of those was a Frank Miller drawn issue, wasn't it?
It is. Lonesome Pinky is the only good thing out of Denny O'Neill's run, especially for Crazy Chris's bio of the character on the podcast. That was a good episode where Crazy Chris did Lonesome Pinky's bio. I remember that. Let's see. Nick Spencer should have brought back Lonesome Pinky during his run. Yep. Yes, Lonesome Pinky did get name checked in the PS4 game. I remember I recorded it and I uploaded it on my Facebook or something when I did name check. Let's see. Ideas, Hornacek, the Assassin's Nation plot.
We did that.
Yeah,
we did the assassination plot.
Round Robin, the Sidekick's Revenge. Oh, I don't.
We didn't do that one, and I have no interest in doing that one. Trust me. That's
the one with Moon Knight, Punisher, Night Thrasher, maybe.
Yeah, and see, that was the problem I had with Michelinie's run, because I felt Michelinie's run had way too much of that stuff, where it was just, it was just that time where like there were all these big, long, one of the Sinister Six stories, for example, I think, which we did too, 6 parts, the big, loud, obnoxious stories with people with big guns. And
they were shipping twice a week because it was summer. I think that was a summer deal. So if I remember correctly,
I'm not a big fan of the Michelinie period because of those types of stories.
Which was worse, Denny O'Neill's run, the 1999 reboot, or Dan Slott's worldwide run? Dan Slott, I think. I think that was so far off from the character.
Well, I think the worldwide run had potential. Like I've always said, I don't think the idea was bad, but the execution was really bad. Because it's kind of like, well, what if Peter Parker finally decided to get a real job and do something with his brilliance, and then find out that that's not really what he wanted to do. That's not where his destiny is. That story could have been told, but it wasn't. We got him being James Bond and something that was stupid. Yeah. The 99 reboot that's a good question, because I don't think Denny O'Neill's era was meant as an FU. I pretty well think the 99 reboot was an FU. So from that perspective alone, it would probably have to be considered the worst.
Really?
Oh yeah. I don't know though, but I mean,
differ on that.
Why?
I just
come on. You didn't like Captain Power any more than anybody else, did you? Or Pantless Bionic Ock? Come on,
But I didn't
pantless
like
bionic Hawk.
I didn't like an out of character Spider-Man making out with Mockingbird, becoming Iron Man / Bruce Wayne. That's not who the dude is.
Oh, I
I
see. You're
just
comparing. You're
didn't.
comparing worldwide to 99, not 99 to. Okay, I
Well, I
understand.
mean, yeah.
No, I understand what
Nintendo
you're saying.
said Spider-Man Rain. You could have fun with that one, Jr.
You know,
Oh God, I don't
Spider-Man
like that.
Rain. I have to say, Spider-Man Rain has the one great line that sums up Peter and Mary
Oh
Jane's
no.
relationship.
Oh
No, no, no,
no.
no, 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 no.
What is it?
No, no. We're not talking about the million eggs of cancer.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were
No,
referencing.
no, 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 no. Yeah, well, that's another classic line. But no, I
Yeah.
mean, it has, because it reminds me of one of these. It reminds me of those in Amazing Spider-Man 2, where everybody, was, saying, "Oh, well, Gwen loved Peter Parker, Mary Jane just loved Spider-Man." No,
Whatever.
but it had the line where, like, Peter is imagining, talking to Mary Jane, and Mary Jane says, "Peter, I didn't fall in love with you because you could put your fist through Flash Thompson's skull. I fell in love with you because you could, but you chose not to."
Well, that's a good line.
That was a great line, and that summed it up. It was, yes, because, so yes, Mary Jane is in love with Peter Parker, but Peter Parker is the hero. Spider-Man is the costume. Peter Parker is the hero. And that's why Mary Jane loves him. Not because he's Spider-Man, but because
What
Peter
is
Parker
Skin Deep
is a
from
hero.
Web?
Oh,
I don't remember that one. What's
no,
Skin Deep?
Skin Deep actually is the fake Molten Man. That's the Skin Deep. If there's a Skin Deep from Web, there was a Skin Deep from Web of Spider-Man. Yes, there was. But I don't.
What's it?
I don't remember it right now. But
Here,
yeah, the Skin Deep. The Skin Deep I was thinking of was with the fake Molten Man during the JMS era.
Yeah,
but I think you're right. I think there was a Skin Deep from the.
I'll pull it up. Let's see.
Yeah, I was about to say it's 107. I'm beginning to fade.
I am too. Oh no, that it pulled up an article from the crawl space, but it was talking about JMS. Here you go. It's Jerry Conway. It's on Amazon.
Okay.
Got Rocket Racer on it. I can't even. Student Riot.
We've done that. We've done that.
The Skinheads. Yes, I remember that.
Skinheads. We have done that. We have done that.
We have done that one.
The guy who was, I'd have to look it up, but the bad guy was named Eddie. He was Eddie, and Eddie was the self-loathing. Yeah, he was
drug
we
addict.
Have done that one because Eddie was a self-loathing Jew. And I think was Hawkeye in that one or whatever, but
I forget.
I don't know, but it was like, and it was one of those like that had one of these sappy, sentimental sayings at the end, and it's like everybody just collectively groaned. We did do that one, yeah. It's a bad.
We also did Octopus Owl War, but not modern with the panels. We haven't done it.
Yeah, we haven't. That's a good one. That's a great classic. That's a classic.
And not in trade. That's not in trade.
It's that's that.
Kids today don't know that one, JR.
Let me write that one. Down. Octopus or Owl, because that is a story which I consider one of my all-time favorites. But it's one that's not been analyzed to death like a lot of the other classics.
It hasn't.
So there we go. Thank you, Octopus Owl.
That's a very good one, and that visual as a kid, him just ripping those arms like I've got you now. Brett says to bring it full.
You could feel him fall in love with Felicia. I mean, that's when he really fell in love with Felicia, and you could feel it. It was honest. It was genuine. He fell hard. And then, Al Milgrom went and shit all over it. So
Brent says Spec 184, which we've been talking about, was one of his first Spider-Man comics. He's amazed he ever came back. All right, that's a good one to end on as we gain even more viewers. I'm looking at, we're up to 30 now. So
folks, thank you very much. I appreciate it. But I'm really out of gas.
I'm running out of gas too. We've been on for several hours now.
But you've given me a lot of good ideas, folks.
Yeah.
Al Octopus 200, Spec 189.200, Cult of Love, Identity Crisis, Planet of the Symbiotes, Facade People. I don't know if you're going to get that one.
Josh's Spec 87, where it ruined Black Cat's character for years. That's the one where he lifts up the mask. Yeah.
That's one of my 10 worst Spider-Man stories, and it remains so.
Yeah. All right, guys. Good night, and we will be back in October for spider
Ooh.
history.
Halloween.
Ah,
Yeah, maybe
no,
there's a good goblin story there.
maybe
I
there's a
don't know.
goblin story. All right, gang.